Welcome to the Shorten Anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of The Great Ruler. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. The Great Ruler Season 1, Episode 12. The West Branch people sure are annoying. Inside the forest filled with shade, Tang Qianer had an angry expression on her face. These people keep coming to trouble Mu Chen, so even a clay figurine would be angry within its heart. Only a mediocre individual will not be hit by jealousy. Mu Chen only chuckled. He looked far behind him and said, "However, that Liu Mubai seems to be quite jealous of me. I don't think I've interacted with him a lot." "Liu Mubai?" Tang Qianer frowned and said, "He wants to deal with you. Or why would you think that Liu Yang, a newcomer who recently ascended the Heaven class, would bring Chen Tong over?" This was probably incited by Liu Mubai. That guy, he is quite similar to the crazy individuals in the spiritual road, but he only lacks a bit of attainment, Mu Chen said in a faint voice. "That guy is also really annoying." Tang Qianer's face turned slightly cold, but she instantly became worried. It isn't that easy to deal with Liu Mubai. Liu Yang isn't the same level as him. Ever since he entered the Northern Spiritual Academy, Liu Mubai had always dominated the title of the strongest within the Northern Spiritual Academy. It seems that he had never lost during these years. Right. Mu Chen, you should be careful about that Liu Mubai. I can't seem to see through that guy. Although I fought against him before, I still lost badly. Even then, Liu Mubai did not use his full strength, Mo Ling said solemnly beside him. "Senior Mo Ling, you are already at the spiritual movement stage late phase. If Liu Mubai was able to defeat you..." Tan Qingshan was astonished and he could not resist blurting out these words. Mo Ling slowly nodded his head and said, "It is likely that Liu Mubai has already advanced into the spiritual rotation stage. That guy is indeed powerful." Tang Qianer's face became serious. If this was true, then it would definitely be troublesome. The gap between spiritual movement stage and spiritual rotation stage was too great. When she thought up to this point, she stared at Mu Chen. The boy's face was still as calm as before, and he had a gentle smile. That wordless silence and calmness suddenly weakened the worries within Tang Qianer, Mo Ling, and Tan Qingshan's heart. The boy in front of them seemed to have some sort of magic power. It made others believe that he could do many extraordinary things in the eyes of ordinary people. Although the spiritual rotation stage is amazing, it isn't an existence that could not be dealt with. It might be troublesome, but if Liu Mubai was to take action, he will have to pay a certain price, Mu Chen gently said. There was no vaunting within his words. Only it did not matter whether it was in the spiritual road or the great thousand world. If anyone has any ideas towards him, he would definitely make them pay the price regardless of the outcome. Forget it. Let's not talk about this right now. The Northern Spiritual Field training has begun. We should also officially start now. The two of you are considered our competitors. Mu Chen looked at Mo Ling and Tan Qingshan as he smiled. Then we should take the advantage by striking first. Mo Ling and Tan Qingshan exchanged gazes with each other and fiercely stomped the ground as they dashed forward. They were currently at the outermost area of the Northern Spiritual Field. Here, the spiritual beasts were quite scarce. Only by venturing in further will they be able to meet them. Mu Chen stared as the two of them departed. He could not endure letting out a laugh. Then he gently rubbed his palms and a tiny bit of excitement appeared in his black eyes. It's been a long time since he hunted others. If he did not move now, he was afraid that he would become rusty. Let's go as well. Mu Chen directed a wave towards the Tang Qianer, and his pace suddenly accelerated. However, he did not follow Mo Ling's route, and instead went on a slightly different route. During the trial within the spiritual road, he understood how to track the spiritual beast trails. The two of them sped up. Within 10 minutes, they gradually entered the outskirts of the Northern Spiritual Field. Sounds of roars would occasionally come from a distance. Tang Qianer followed closely behind Mu Chen. The girl's pretty face was slightly nervous. She knew that they would lose their life if they were surrounded by spiritual beasts in this kind of dangerous place. And just when she was nervously staring at her surroundings, Mu Chen's body suddenly stopped. She smashed straight onto him without any guard up. The girl's soft and delicate body pressed onto Mu Chen's back. This soft feeling made Mu Chen blink. Behind him, Tang Qianer blushed and quickly tried to step back. However, her hand was caught by Mu Chen. Shh. Before Tang Qianer needlessly struggled, Mu Chen had already waved his hand slightly. His eyes pierced through the forest and stared straight ahead. Tang Qianer also followed that gaze, and she saw a patch of open space. She noticed that there were two blood-red bodies with a black horn on its forehead. These two creatures were similar to a tiger and a pig. It leisurely strolled around while emitting piercing endlessly. "It's the low-rank spiritual beast blood swine tiger," Mu Chen said softly. "These two blood swine tigers seems to be at the strength of a spiritual movement, stage middle phase. However, this beast has a thick skin, so it should be able to endure an all-out attack from a spiritual movement, stage late phase. If it were to enter in a frenzy, it would be exceptionally fierce. One for each person, is that okay?" Mu Chen looked at Tang Qianer. The girl's pretty face was slightly pale, but she still managed to nod her head. This was probably the first time that she was going to face a spiritual beast head-on. "Don't worry, I'm here." Mu Chen smiled as he comforted her. "Yes." Tang Qianer gently gritted her teeth, and her slender hand gripped onto a short sword. She did not want to drag down Mu Chen. She must work hard for their results. "Let's go," Mu Chen gently said as his body rushed out. Roar! When Mu Chen appeared, the two blood swine tiger turned their red eyes over towards him. They let out a roar, and a bloody light emitted from their body. Bang! With quaking steps, one of the blood swine tiger charged violently like a streak of red light towards Mu Chen. When the other one planned on following it, a sharp, shattered rock wrapped in spiritual energy hit its nose heavily. This made it falter, and its blood-red eyes stared at the delicate girl. It let out a roar and charged over. Mu Chen stared at the blood swine tiger that was charging towards him. His eyes did not panic, and instead a hint of excitement flashed through. He stomped and actually charged straight at it. A human and a beast skimmed by each other. The fierce winds raised the leaves on the ground. The instant that the two of them were about to collide, Mu Chen's body suddenly took a diagonal step. His right hand gripped onto a sharp dagger, and dark black spiritual energy quickly wrapped around it. Mu Chen's right hand drew an arc. The black light appeared right as the blood swine tiger passed by, and a cold light flashed through the blood swine tiger's eyes as it sputtered out blood. The blood swine tiger crashed severely at the large tree behind him. The giant tree toppled down and the ground shook. The blood swine tiger seemed to cry out in berserk. Its pair of blood-red eyes was stabbed by Mu Chen, and it became blind. Roar! The pain almost made the blood swine tiger become crazy. It used the smell in the air in order to switch directions and charge recklessly at Mu Chen. The mane that covered its body was like barbed wire as it stood up. It was like a steel fortress. However, Mu Chen seemed to be quite calm as he faced the berserk blood swine tiger. He took a step that allowed the blood swine tiger to charge recklessly by his side. Every time the blood swine tiger rushed past his body, the razor-sharp dagger would bring fresh and hot blood. The hot blood slowly rolled down the dagger. In the end, the blood swine tiger let out a shrill howl, and its body stopped moving. Mu Chen drew the dagger calmly and cut the enormous blood swine tiger apart. That experienced approach would shock even the adventurers, who hunted spiritual beasts for a living. It wasn't something that a boy at this age should possess. After he dealt with the blood swine tiger, Mu Chen looked towards Tang Qianer. At this moment, the girl was in a slightly difficult position. Although there were many blood trails on the blood swine tiger's body, it was basically uninjured for a blood swine tiger with thick skin. Roar! Just at this moment, the blood swine tiger that was entangled by Tang Qianer might have heard the cries of its dying companion. Its blood-red eyes instantly flushed red, and its originally huge body actually swelled up. It went in a frenzy? Mu Chen saw this and lifted his eyebrow. Ah! Tang Qianer issued out a surprised cry. When the short sword cut onto the blood swine tiger's body, an impact shocked her instead, and the sword flew away. She immediately retreated a few steps and felt a shadow covering her. A smell of blood charged towards her. The blood swine tiger jumped up high into the sky and firmly squashed down like a little mountain. Facing the shadow coming down, Tang Qianer's face became pale and her body felt as if it couldn't move. Shwa! A figure suddenly appeared from the side. Its arm wrapped around her slender waist, and a dark black spiritual energy expanded through the dagger in his hand. Like a dark light, it cut across the belly of the blood swine tiger from below. Smash! Fresh blood fell down. However, this also includes smelly intestines and internal organs. Mu Chen held on to Tang Qianer as they rolled on the ground in order to avoid the heavy press from the blood swine tiger. The blood swine tiger struggled for a moment before it stopped moving. It was obvious that it has lost its life. Whew! When Mu Chen noticed that they successfully got rid of the two blood swine tiger, he let out a light breath out. Then he felt the girl's struggles within his arm, and he released her as he smiled. He said, "Are you all right?" Tang Qian'er shook her head as her face was flushed red. She looked at the two dead blood swine tiger, and amazement appeared within her beautiful eyes. She understood that it was basically all Mu Chen's credit for taking out these two dead blood swine tiger this swiftly. "Why are you so amazing? I fought against the blood swine tiger for so long, yet I failed to kill it." Tang Qian'er could not help saying this out. It's best to directly aim at its vital parts. You'll get used to it after you kill a few more. Mu Chen smiled before he went up to the two blood swine tiger. His dagger cut across its head, and a red light flew out. Two fist-sized clumps of light slowly ascended. Inside the clump of light, you could vaguely see a miniature blood swine tiger, and a faint, violent spiritual energy fluctuation emitted from it. This is the spiritual beast's soul essence. Mu Chen recovered the two spiritual beasts' soul essence and threw it towards Tang Qian'er. The latter caught it in curiosity. She looked at it back and forth as if she was quite satisfied with their first reward in their life. Mu Chen could not help but laugh as he witnessed this scene. He wiped off the blood from his dagger and stared further into the deeper areas. His tongue licked his lips gently. It seems that the earlier bloody events reawakened his suppressed desire. "Let's go. This is only the beginning." Mu Chen tilted his head as he spoke to Tang Qian'er. Then he took large strides again. This level of spiritual beast still lacks a bit of challenge. In the forest covered with leaves, the ground suddenly trembled. A violent cry spread outwards. When looking in the direction of the cry, a giant yellow bear, which was roughly a few meters tall, was currently swinging its hammer-like palms around. It recklessly smacked at the petite body in front of it in anger. Facing against the slap from the giant bear, the petite body retreated backwards. Spiritual energy wrapped around the short sword in her hand. Like a snake bursting out a hole, a red blood trace appeared across the giant bear's white fur. The pain coming from its chest made the giant bear a little mad. The giant palm was filled with yellow spiritual energy. Every time the slap comes down, it would leave deep imprints on the ground. If a single slap were to hit the petite body, it would definitely be enough to cause a severe injury. Fortunately, the petite body was extremely agile. It constantly dodged, and the dagger would leave bloodstains in front of the bear's chest whenever the bear slipped up. The large and small figures continued to fight with each other. After approximately 10 minutes, the giant bear finally could not endure this kind of fight, and its enormous body crashed down to the ground like a boulder. The beautiful girl finally saw that the bear could not endure it and died. She also let out a sigh of relief and wiped the cold sweat on her forehead with her hand. She turned her head away while panting heavily. Under a nearby tree, a boy with a long body smiled as he looked at this scene. "Not bad." Mu Chen walked forward and stared at the mountain bear's body. Then he pointed at the white mark filled with bloodstains and said, "However, your attacks are still not decisive enough. That is your weakness. As long as you find a flaw, you should completely kill it. The method you used earlier wasted too much effort. If the mountain bear was slightly stronger, perhaps it would be able to mentally exhaust you." Tang Qian'er glanced at the location where another mountain bear was killed. However, there was only a single bloody hole at the white mark on the mountain bear's chest. The location of the bloody hole was extremely precise. It directly pierced through the mountain bear's heart, and it was obvious that the mountain bear died in one attack. This mountain bear was the results of Mu Chen's battle. Tang Qian'er previously saw the sharp blow. It was fierce, accurate, and without any hesitation. The calmness and horrifying Mu Chen showed when he killed was many times more natural than her. "You're an insane person. How could I compare with you?" Tang Qian'er pouted her lips. Although she had never really killed any spiritual beasts, she could still feel that Mu Chen's actions weren't any inferior to the adventurers, who would always be muddled in between life and death. How could she compare to him? However, she still had a bit of admiration in her heart, even when she said that. Under Mu Chen's guidance, she had begun to get rid of the initial fear that she felt along the way. She even had the ability to kill a low-ranked spiritual beast at the spiritual movement stage middle phase by herself. As for Mu Chen, his handsome face had maintained a quiet and gentle smile. This was enough to frighten her. In his eyes, it was an insignificant act. Tang Qian'er's gaze wandered around, and she stared at the boy, who was retrieving the mountain bear's soul essence. A shattered point of light landed on his body. His profile had a serious expression and possesses a quality that ordinary youths would not possess. This made her blush slightly. Today's rewards aren't that bad. Up until now, we have already collected 8 low-ranked spiritual beasts' soul essences. Mu Chen collected the mountain bear's soul essence and stood up as he directed a smile towards Tang Qianer. When she heard this excellent result, Tang Qianer's face was also smiling. She was quite satisfied with the harvest today. Let's go. We should continue. The result is only a trivial matter. We should take advantage of this opportunity to improve ourselves. Mu smiled, but just when he was about to venture in deeper, he suddenly frowned and stared off to the right. What is it? Seeing this, Tang Qianer asked. There was a movement over there. Let's go check it out. Mu Chen thought for a moment before he beckoned his hand towards Tang Qianer. His pace accelerated and he headed in that direction. When Tang Qianer noticed this, she hurried and followed. In the dense forest, dozens of Northern Spiritual Academy students were grouped up together. At this moment, they were looking in front with a pale expression. At that location, there were a dozen figures leaning lazily at the tree trunk. The gazes that stared at the students had a bit of ridicule within them. Although the behavior of the figures seemed quite lazy, they still gave off a highly trained feeling. Their eyes were bright and sharp. A bloody smell even emitted from their body. It was actually an adventurer's team. What are you trying to do? In front of the Northern Spiritual Academy students, there were a few familiar figures there. Mo Ling, Tan Qingshan, Zhang Li, and Teng Yong were all there. However, the color of their faces was the same as the other Northern Spiritual Academy students. They furiously stared in fear at the adventurers in front of them. After all, they were still young youths. They would feel fear from the fierce spiritual beasts. And the adventurers in front of them are all individuals whose blade would often taste blood. The viciousness that they would occasionally reveal was enough to make them shudder. You are all a group of brats that haven't grown any hair yet. A young man dressed in leather armor smiled as he stared at the Northern Spiritual Academy students. He said lazily, "Didn't I say it earlier? Hand over the soul essences that you possess." "You want to rob us?" a boy roared out in anger. "That's correct," the young man laughed. Sounds of laughter appeared from his comrades behind him. It seems that they treated this as some sort of entertainment. "We are students from the Northern Spiritual Academy. Our 2 teachers are here and they possess spirit stage strength." A student tried to use Teacher Mo and Teacher Shi and attempted to shock the adventure team in front of them. "I know that you are students from the Northern Spiritual Academy. You came here for training, right? Then didn't your teacher tell you that being robbed is also a type of training?" The young man curled his lips and said, "As long as we do not kill you, your teachers won't care about it. So, hand them over. Don't make me take action, since I am quite brutal." The young man grinned and his white beast-like teeth made others feel a chill. "You!" Mo Ling could not endure holding back his anger and clenched his hands tightly. "You want to take action and test it out? You are also at the level of spiritual movement stage late phase, the same as me? Why don't we see who is more powerful?" The young man glanced at Mo Ling, but his smile was slightly bloodthirsty. When Mo Ling noticed the young man's gaze as if he was staring at a prey, he felt a faint chill in his heart. Although they were both at the spiritual movement stage late phase, the latter's imposing manner wasn't something that he could compare with. Also, the comrades behind him weren't any weaker than him. Mo Ling's eyes flashed. In the end, he slowly released his clenched hands. With a painful laugh, he helplessly shook his head towards Tan Qingshan, Zhang Li, and the others. Tan Qingshan also sighed. They also knew that they weren't at the same level as the adventurer team in front of them. They could only admit that they were unlucky and lose their wealth in order to avert the trouble in front of them. Now that's a good child. When the young man noticed that Mo Ling and the others gave up their resistance, he laughed in satisfaction. Yet the corner of his lips was a bit mocking. "This is the Northern Spiritual Academy students? It really is disappointing. What are you doing?" Just when Mo Ling and the others were about to toss over the spiritual beast soul essence that they managed to obtain, a puzzled voice rang out from behind them. They instantly turned their head over and saw Mu Chen and Tang Qianer watching them nearby. "Mu Chen?" When Mo Ling and the others saw Mu Chen, they reflexively became joyful. Then they immediately thought about something and had a gaze that told him to quickly leave. "What is it?" Mu Chen seemed to ignore their gazes and smiled as he brought Tang Qianer over. "Shh, so there's another fat prey." The young man smiled at Mu Chen, and then his gaze suddenly landed on Tang Qianer beside him. His eyes instantly lit up and he whistled. He said humorously, "And also a beauty." Tang Qian'er glared angrily at the young man, but the lovely angry expression made the young man fell into a trance slightly. When Mo Ling noticed the two of them walking over, he shook his head helplessly. Then he began to explain the situation. "Robbery? You're quite unlucky." When Mu Chen heard this, he could not help but smile as he spoke. "Aren't you the same now?" Zhang Li and the others rolled back their eyes. How can this guy still laugh in this kind of situation? "Oi, the boy over there. Since you also came, you should hand over some of your spiritual beast soul essences. Then hand over the beauty. After all, we shouldn't show favoritism." The young man beckoned as he laughed. "You want mine as well?" Mu Chen frowned as he said, "Who told you to be so unlucky and walked over here? You brats sure are stupid. Although you are quite talented, you guys aren't good enough if we were to fight." The young man said helplessly, "I only have one spiritual beast soul essence. I'll give you that." Mu Chen rubbed his head and pulled out a spiritual beast soul essence from his arms. Then he walked towards the young man. "Are you deaf? I told you to bring that beauty over as well. You're quite an annoying boy." The young man frowned and chattered on endlessly. As he was chattering, Mu Chen had already arrived in front of him. He handed the spiritual beast soul essence over. The young man stretched out his hand to grab the spiritual beast soul essence. His other hand seemed to slap towards Mu Chen's head in dissatisfaction. However, before he touched the spiritual beast soul essence, the boy's black eyes, which originally contained a smile, instantly turned cold. He turned his palm upright and a sharp black light flashed. It created an arc as it fiercely and cunningly slashed across the young man's palm. Fresh blood suddenly splattered out. This scene happened in a split second. Hardly anyone could react to it. A few of the comrades behind the young man stared at the splattering blood in a daze. In front of many stunned gazes, the handsome boy suddenly smiled. "Sorry, I suddenly don't feel like giving it to you." That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.